Just let me know whenever you think we're ready. Got enough folks on board.
We have 4, including you, and Councilmember Appel signing on, so I think we can start when you're ready.
Oh, great. So we got Councilmember Shealy, Shade, and Gregory, and Appel. Oh, good. Thank you all for joining us. Let me just hit the send button on one thing.
Dudley,
Yes,
you could be around after this meeting for a quick phone call?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
And there's a hardworking man over there. He's got his tie down halfway.
Wow.
He looks worn out.
Yeah,
Auditors.
I've got my overtime job with the city.
He's a little more like Dudley. I mean, Dudley looks relaxed and comfortable, and
Yeah, man.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for this August 24th meeting of our ad hoc budget advisory committee. The agenda says a moment of silence. I would just like to offer almost a grace to thank God for the many blessings that we do have. I know we have challenges to fund all that we would like to fund, but I ask the Lord to guide us and make us good stewards of the resources that we have for the benefit of our city and our citizens. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So I think Amy's got most of the show as usual. She's going to start out with our July monthly reports on both expenditures and income. And it's all pretty good news, if I may say so. And then we'll talk about our capital improvement plan and some additions we're proposing for that. And then the upcoming couple of months, we're going to get really back in action again with the budget process. We'll be starting to review all the departments real soon. And so Amy, if you would kick us off with the monthly reports, that'd be great.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Expenditures for the month of July. I think these are always very, very small, so I apologize, but you have them in your what I sent to you last night too. Every department is tracking their budget right now. Kind of where we are every single month lately. We're ahead of target through July with salary savings as well. I'll stop here unless you want me to just keep going. Want to take a minute to look at it?
Just keep going.
Okay.
Bottom line there, we're our expenditures are $8 million less than what we'd projected through the end of July.
Citywide, we're ahead of our salary savings target. We budgeted $6 million. Right now, we've taken $4.8 million so far. Gas, oil, and lubricants are over target, but we have a fuel slide we'll go over like I do every month. Vehicle repairs are over, mostly in the police department, but some of that was a timing issue because if anybody has had to have repairs to a vehicle, it takes a long time. We received the money in last year in 2021, but we weren't able to get the cars fixed until 2022. So that's a lot of that issue there. And like we said, under budget in all departments as of July 31st, a lot of that has to do with vacant positions, with the exception of fire and human resources, who haven't really had, which is surprising because HR has had some turnover, but right now they're doing okay. Operationally, the only departments that are trending over budget is executive, but that's actually all due to, and the department isn't tracking over. It's just, it's under budget with the exception of legal because of our professional and contractual services for the lawyers' fees that we're paying. But Julia's making some adjustments to that. It's just some of the legal issues that we've had that have caused her to be a little bit over budget as of July 31st.
Amy, maybe the sound quality of being on Zoom, but could you slow down just a little bit?
Sure,
Yeah, thank you.
you know me, I
Yeah.
go through this stuff fast. Recreation, we talked about this or I guess in May when we went through monthly reports. We have a lot more participation in some of our programs. So their expenditures are tracking over budget, but we have revenues to match that. So it's not an issue, just so you know that. And the golf course is doing very well. We'll go over that.
Let me just echo that. The golf course is doing extremely well. Since Councilmember Parker and I have joined the Golf Commission, I want you to know the upward trend on the number of revenues coming in from the golf course.
So that I guess is credited to Councilmember Shade for being on the golf course commission. So we can all thank him for that. Thank you. So then we have my mouse isn't working. Sorry, hold on. There we go. Is that right? Okay, so fuel costs, we talked about this. We're kind of leveling out, I hope. We budgeted $3.50 a gallon. Average price per gallon as of July 29th was $3.94. If we stay here, we'll be about $264,000 over budget for the year, but if it goes up to $4.74, we'll be over budget by approximately $552,000. So we're just paying attention and keeping track of that monthly. Not a whole lot we can do about that. Any questions?
Does anybody have a crystal ball as to what anybody else is expecting? I mean, the gas prices sort of leveled off a little bit.
They seem to be, I hope. And, you know, we have this discussion every year during our budget process on where we feel is a good number will be to budget. But we were off the mark, obviously, for 2022.
Yeah.
Needless to say, it's so dependent on worldwide events and the situation in Ukraine and Russia that so you just can't predict it. We didn't know it was going to be like this, that's for sure.
Yep.
So revenues, tracking over target so far. Business licenses has again surprised us and has come out much higher than we anticipated. We did have the new due date this year of May 1st, so we feel like this is a good number for us. That didn't affect us at all, the due date change. So anyway, we're doing very well in business licenses. Local option sales tax, we've talked about, obviously is doing very well. Permits and fees are tracking slightly over target, whereas at the end of May, they were a little bit under. So that looks a little bit better. Building inspections, we're going to work with them for 2023 on how they're budgeting their revenues. And then that's just what the graphs look like. We'll stop for a second if you have any questions.
Yeah, so Amy, we would normally expect our property taxes to be what they are. I mean, what has created the variance in the property taxes?
Well, that's mostly vehicles, Councilmember Shade, and delinquent taxes, things that have been collected. We won't get our big property taxes until the end of this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was expecting, nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is mainly personal property taxes, or what is this coming from?
Motor vehicles and delinquent, really, is what that is.
Motorcycles, motor vehicles, and boats, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
Boats, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think it's interesting to note, y'all, that we didn't have any negative impact on the business licenses that we know of from following the statewide protocol that was agreed upon and put upon us really by the state legislature, but it was done in agreement with the municipal association. So, everybody's doing the same thing statewide, and it's all on the same due date, no matter where you are in the state. So, when that first came down, I was afraid it might have some negative impact on us, but clearly it has not. So that's good.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
Amy, on the franchise tax,
Mhm.
good to see it being over. What do you attribute that to? I always kind of like pins and needles on that going down, but
Yeah, I don't know. We were so conservative because every year, remember, we were surprised, like it would be a little bit short every year. So I think we were just extra conservative this year, and that's really what it is. They're kind of flattening out, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Enterprise, we're doing really well in all of our enterprise funds. All funds are tracking over target. Parking is doing very well. We've talked about the golf course doing well. Just a reminder too, with the renovation, the expectation was the golf course would make a profit around $300,000 a year to kind of recoup the cost of the renovation, and the surplus was supposed to go towards future maintenance costs of the course. Just wanted to remind everybody of that, considering we have some discussions about future renovations at the golf course.
And so this is again through the end of July, and we've already met our kind of internal $300,000 goal for coming to the city. Is that what you're saying, Amy? So like at this point, theoretically, we'd be thinking $63,000 would be available to go back into improvements at the golf course?
Fund balance, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, some of that's timing too, Mayor, with expenditure. So I wouldn't count on that being the way that it is for the entire year. We'll just have to see.
I understand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They need bathrooms out there desperately is what they need.
Mhm.
All right.
Al has his hand up, Mayor.
Yeah,
Yes, please. I can't, everybody's so tiny here, I couldn't see. Please.
no problem. Thank you, Councilman Gregory, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to echo that, you know, the municipal golf course is in my district. And while I'm not much of a golfer, I surely admire everything that they've done over there. And if we can continue to track positively in this regard financially and have some resources open up to maybe look into building some more of those restrooms that we've heard about, that would certainly be very well received by my constituents over there on James Island. So thank y'all.
Understood. So if these trends continue, we should have some revenue available. It's not on our capital projects yet, but I did ask Jason to go ahead and look at like where the closest sewer lines are, because that's a big function of the cost of putting in bathrooms as to how far you got to run your line to get to them. So he's going to go ahead and scope that out and kind of come up with a preliminary budget. So we are working on that. In the meantime, I did want to remind everybody that there are bathrooms at the clubhouse, and some of the comments we received almost made it sound like there weren't any available. They are, and I've asked that we check in with our portalette service to make sure that we're servicing those portalettes more often and as frequently as they need to be, just in the interim period, just to let y'all know.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I think one of the things that's lost on us is the renovation of the golf course has generated this sense of great pride out there. This has now become the crown jewel of the recreation department. If you try to book a tee time particularly on the weekends or from Thursday on, you've got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and hit that. This is reality.
Yeah.
And hit that request to get a decent tee time. Otherwise, you lose out. That's just sort of a measure of the popularity of the golf course. And the other thing that's really been very keen with Marshall and his staff and the golf commission is that if we wanted to take advantage of the popularity of the golf course, we could raise fees and bring it at a much higher level. But we're not doing that. This golf course is serving the public need for those who want to go out there and just enjoy several hours of this beautiful course. It's got this natural beauty out there.
Oh, yeah.
And you got 18 holes, and so what they need I hate to say the relief, but what they need the relief. You can't make it back to the golf course in time, and it's these portalets are smelly and stinky, and it's really quite embarrassing. I mean, it really is for the city of our statute to have these things out there. One thing that if this was a temporary issue, and one thing as this was just for crowd control measures, but we heard and then very loud and clear that these folks, they just don't, this is not a luxury item. This is a necessity item. And I'm going to yield my further comments. I see my colleague Caroline Parker raising her hand out here. She may want to add more to it than what I have said. But we both got an earful on last Thursday about that. And they're absolutely 100% correct. The golf course is making money, and we got some surplus out there. Let's apply that money to the.
Let me call on Caroline, Councilmember Parker. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. You're on mute.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. And I'm not on this committee. That's okay. I can still speak.
No, but I'm happy to recognize you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to that point, I did receive an email, and we did speak at this commission. The one thing I'd like to point out is that they can't, I guess, have certain tournaments at the golf course without having kind of additional restrooms. I guess there's a for whatever again, I'm not a golfer, so this is above me, but that is something I think to consider. Thinking that maybe these improvements could possibly pay for themselves if they're available to get some of those bigger tournaments at their course. Just wanted to throw that out there. That was a comment and an email that I received. Maybe all of you received it as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know sometimes with tournaments you get extra attendance, and even when I went to the pro tournament, they have these nice portalet trailers, bathroom trailers they bring in, and it may come that we need to do that for a period of time before we can, even if we started with a capital project to add some bathrooms, believe it or not, it's going to take a little while. But I've already asked, as I mentioned, Jason, go ahead and spec out where the closest lines would be. And in the meantime, we hope to continue our partnership with the Friends of the Muni to help fund these things. And we've been waiting to get a memorandum of understanding back from the Friends of the Muni. So hopefully that all comes together. Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Friends of the Muni, have certainly done a good job of fundraising, and they've done a great job of getting people out there. They're spending money on our behalf right now on they're getting ready to vote on a marketing program that's going to drive more people than we already have. As big a
maybe they ought to wait off. No, I'm
well, that group of business people with the Friends of the Muni, they have some great business people on there, and certainly we all saw the presentation that Troy Miller made, and to the Recreation Committee. It was passed on to all of our city council. So they're going to continue to help us. But I think when we look at bathrooms, I think it's a hard sell for them to they're a nonprofit group that's trying to raise money. When we say, well, we're going to buy bathrooms for the city golf course, I think that's a harder sell than selling we're going to improve the clubhouse, or we're going to be able to put this pavilion out there, and they're going to see everything they do, we're going to see a return of investment on. And those bathrooms are a necessity. It would be a necessity anywhere. And like some of the other council members said, it's a long way from when you get 5 or 6 holes away from that clubhouse to have to go back or have a choice of peeing in the woods or using a stinky urinal. I just feel strongly that the city needs to take care of our own bathrooms. So, and the the Friends of the Muni are going to help us with a lot more that's going to continue to give us that return on investment. So.
Well, I appreciate all their collaboration. You know, they were pretty much founded when we embarked upon the renovation of the course. And we talked about bathrooms being future improvements with the Friends at the inception, at the very beginning of the formation. I called my cousin and some other folks together that helped start that thing. So bathrooms was on the agenda from the very get-go. And it's I think everybody would agree it would be a great improvement to the course. So we just need to work that out with the Friends. We will. And we're starting to figure out where they need to go based upon the utilities that are available. We're going to figure this out. Appreciate everybody's concern about it.
And Mayor,
Councilmember Gregory and then Waring.
I mean, if we just need to get some sense of cost, you know, we did the bathroom in Ferguson Village.
Yep.
And a really great bathroom and style. But I think that ran us somewhere around $250,000.
Yeah. I think it was about 300.
Exactly. Just so that people get a sense of what it's going to cost.
Yeah. And that was for Portland Loo, which I'm told secondhand that the folks at our friends at the Muni and courts would like more traditional, larger bathroom facility like we would have at a park house. And those cost about, in today's dollars, about $500,000. And that's assuming you got a line that's pretty close to a sewer line. So that's what we got to check out first. Councilmember Waring.
Yeah, I was just, I agree with everybody. I mean, I'm on the same page. I don't play golf, but that's an amenity that benefits the whole city, frankly. But I would ask if you would get Jason to reach out to the people at CWS. They know all the high spots and low spots and where the water lines are, where the sewer, taps are.
Yeah.
I think he could kind of run down some, save Jason a few footsteps if he gets in contact with Mark over there. I think they can do it in kind pretty quick to get the more cost-effective locations to locate those restrooms. But listen, there's a lot of good. You're right, Mr. Mayor. When you came up with that Friends of the Muni, I don't know how long the municipal golf course has been around, but I never heard of it until you the group may have been around, but I had never heard of it until you pull it together and got that public-private partnership going on. So everything on this thing is really good. It kind of came to head a little bit surprised there, but we all on the same page. It'll happen.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of the point. So that just recently came up. We haven't really had a chance to really work with that yet. And we are trying to get started on it. And there's other considerations that we have to take into consideration with the golf course and the general fund and all of those other things. So we are working on that. Can we move on? Stormwater fund?
Yep.
Yeah.
So right now revenues are about $225,000 over budget. Expenditures are under budget by 1.6. Some of that is timing. We have emergency funds set aside that we really haven't had to use yet, which is a good thing. And then, we all know about the personnel issues that we have. So probably need to talk about that. Any questions about that?
I did speak with Councilman Greg and today, and he couldn't be on this meeting, but he made mention about over that governance part, that big old activity field they got over there apparently holds a pretty good bit of water.
Yeah, we have that Councilmember Waring later, because that wouldn't be necessarily considered a stormwater or drainage project.
Okay.
So that's later in our capital improvement section, if you don't mind waiting.
That's good enough for me. No, that's great.
Okay. So tourism funds, really doing well with tourism funds. We budgeted very close to 2019 and we're tracking well above budget. We're at 70.49% of what we budgeted at the end of July. So there's no doubt that we'll exceed our 2022 budgeted revenues. You see municipal aid tax, where, we budgeted 7 million, we're at 4.5, just looking at all of those numbers there. State aid tax is a little bit funky because we had one large hotel that was a little bit behind on their payments just because there was a sale and that type of thing. It wasn't purposeful. So those revenues came in 22, which really were for 21. So it's skewing those numbers just a little bit. And then we also have the Robin Hood clause where the state keeps some of our money to give to less fortunate. I don't want to say that, but some counties and cities that don't have as much tourism. And we actually got a larger amount back for that than we typically do. So that number is a little bit higher for those two reasons so far. But you can see hospitality, we're already at 11.3, and tourism ticket fees were tracking better than we have for the last couple of years as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I hate to go back, but on stormwater, I know we have been had a consultant or whatever, looking at how we're gonna go about getting those late fees on
Right.
stormwater. Are we close to having an answer on whether we're gonna have it applied to the property taxes or?
We are, I know that they have finished their report, Councilmember Waring, and they're getting that to Mr. Fountain for him to look at. And so I think the plan is to bring it to Public Works in the future, once he gets the report and he kind of calls through that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Amy, a question,
Mhm.
and I think I should know the answer to this question, but if we were to break down tourism revenues in a quarterly fashion, aren't our revenues pretty consistent by quarter?
I think they're becoming more normal than they have because we're not seeing the peaks and valleys that we used to see, because it seems like Charleston is busy all year round now. So I'd have to look at it by quarter, Councilmember Shea, but we were just noticing that they're kind of there. You will have some months that have more than others. So it's not every quarter is exactly the same. We probably would have seen more differentiation by quarter before, but now that Charleston's become as busy as it has, it's not as much as it used to be, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that not too long ago, we had seasons, but now I think that this is almost a year-round tourist destination. And I agree with you. I'm sure that some months outperform other months, but that's why I said quarterly basis. I think, and the reason I'm bringing it up, we've got 5 more months of revenue, and we're at 70% of our revenue with 5 months to go. That's pretty telling, I think, and that's why I was asking. I don't think the next 5 months are going to be slow months at all. I mean, they may be slower than other months, perhaps, but not slow months in the traditional sense. We think
honestly, September tends to be our slower month, but I'll bring that next time, Councilmember Shea. We can look at it by quarter, so you can kind of see over the last few years what it's looked like and how it's changing, if that would be helpful.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay.
And this is one category that I think we're hesitant to spend till we get it in a way, because it's the most, what's the term economists use, the most elastic or whatever, that it as we've seen from COVID and weather events of the past, it can turn on a dime.
It's vulnerable.
It's more vulnerable. That's a good word. So, but it's doing great this year. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yep.
So with the success, we've talked about some things that we could do. Second Sunday, we had talked about that last time with the need to attract our officers and pay them a little bit more for Second Sunday. We had agreed to $3 million for Daniel Island Tennis Center renovation to pay. We could pay it over 3 years. We paid one, so we could actually cover the additional $2 million commitment this year and take care of that. A theater, the Dock Street Theater LED light conversion, that would be about $800,000. We needed a little bit of additional funding for the Charleston 9 firefighter memorial because of this additional cost and a little bit of a change in scope to that project. So we allocate the remaining funding to that. Golf course netting, that was supposed to be part of the renovation, has not been done yet. And it needs to, holes 9, 10, 17, and 18 are kind of problematic. We're seeing more tort claims from golf balls hitting vehicles and things like that. So we need to get the netting. We can utilize hospitality for that. We had talked about some funding for the Children's Museum renovation. You all just passed at the last council meeting, the visitor center renovation, so we can take care of that. That would be with state accommodations tax, and then additional funding for the Mother Emanuel Memorial. So we'll be bringing that to City Council for approval, which we can utilize both state aid tax and hospitality funding for. And then we did receive our accommodation tax grants were due August 11th for 2023. And we received 39 applications, and the aid tax committee will meet mid-October to go through those applications. And the ask was about $4 million from those 39 applications.
So any questions, Councilmember Waring? On any?
Yeah, I do. We got anything in here for the Greenway, West Ashley Greenway or Bikeway? Or, we took $2 million from West Ashley during the pandemic that we had set aside for improvements to West Ashley. We all know why. It certainly didn't want to furlough people, and that money needed to come back. But
so, Councilmember Waring, I think all of the Greenway projects are fully funded. If we'll go through the capital improvement plan, you'll see those on there. So I can pull that up when we go through the capital improvement plan, so you can see those projects.
Okay, all right.
And I think Jason and Edmund are on here as well for when we do go through those.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I don't have them necessarily in my slides just because I was highlighting the newer things that we put on there, but we can pull it up and go through it if you'd like.
Yeah, but my point to the committee, all due respect, during 19, we put money aside for improvements West Ashley, for future improvements West Ashley. Due to pandemic and lower revenue fees, those monies came back into the city for good reason. So when do we get back to doing something like that? I won't say we flushed, but we certainly a lot more revenue present than it was in 20 and 21. I just want to keep that in mind. In other words, we cannot revitalize West Ashley without revenue.
So you'll see in the capital improvements list coming up in a few minutes, there are a number of parks, West Ashley and the Greenway, and just a number of them. We'll get to them in just a few minutes.
Thank you. Pardon me for getting ahead of myself.
No, it's fine. That including just some general funds, as has been requested by the West Ashley Revitalization Commission to do some beautification and some signage over there as well. We have a line item for that for you, as well as part of our capital improvements budget. This would be, the kind of tourism related things that we're able to justify, and per all those regulations we have with accommodations. One in particular, if I could call on Councilmember Gregory to share with us an update about the Mother Emanuel Memorial, because they're in a kind of at a decision point of ordering this marble and other materials, and he can tell you more about it than I can, but we felt like it's given the success we're seeing in these funds right now, that it's an appropriate request to fulfill, or ask council to consider to fulfill. Councilmember Gregory?
Yeah, Mayor. As most of you know, cost has gone up considerably. And our fundraising efforts are not where they really need to be at this point in time. We've already been to Italy. The stones for the benches are being cut. And it's time for us to start construction. And given the shortfall that we have, it would hinder the project considerably, which is a reason why the board would like for the city, as well as the state and others, to contribute a little more money so that we can meet these deadlines that are coming up. I did share with you, Mayor, as well as Amy, the budget and where we are in terms of fundraising. But this shortfall is going to definitely have an impact on construction and completion. And that's the reason why we're coming back to the city for additional funds.
And from what I understand, there's the Italian marble, but there's also a good bit of stone that's being quarried up in Minnesota or somewhere southern part of Canada, and they only do it for certain months of the year. If they don't go ahead and get it on order before the winter comes in, then it'll delay us a full year. And the opportunity, I would just remind everybody about this memorial, is going to be so powerful for our city in remembering what happened at Mother Emanuel. But in effect, for the city of Charleston, it adds almost a public space around the church that it's almost like adding another park to our park system, because it really opens up the gates around the church to the public to be able to reflect and remember those who died and the whole tragedy and the hope for the future. So I mean, it's just going to be such an incredible, powerful addition to our city. I believe it's with prices rising and the opportunity to move forward. I think they've raised something like $10 million. Isn't that right, Councilmember?
Yes.
So, but to get the shovel in the dirt and to put this order and get the rest of the stone quarried, frankly, they need another $2 million to make it happen and to be able to move forward.
Mayor, I think it would be great if we, at some point, give a presentation to the full council.
Sure.
On the memorial and how it will look.
We can do that at the next meeting. I'd love to. Yeah.
I'll make that happen.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Councilmember Waring and Shade, I think you had your hand up a minute ago. Councilmember Waring.
Peter, you might have had your hand up before me. Go ahead.
Well, number one, I think whatever we need to do to help contribute to the additional funding for Mother Emanuel, we need to do that. And the point that you just made, Mayor, about ordering supplies, we don't want to miss the boat on that. So let's get together on that issue. The other question was for Amy. Amy, the golf course netting is the tourism revenue can be applied for that. Can that tourism revenues also be applied for these bathrooms we've been talking about earlier?
A portion probably could be, Councilmember Shade, just depending. We always look to see at their tourism numbers to see how much can be allocated towards that.
But that may be a potential source.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just obviously I agree with all of that with Mother Emanuel. Councilman Gregory, if you're still listening, I knew there was a request to the state. Did the state, what was the, I know they came through, did they come through it? What was contribution that the state made?
The state, I think it was 4 million.
4 million, okay. All right, good. Thank you.
And we're going back for additional.
Okay, good.
So basically the city and the state would be at the same level.
Got you.
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear. Makes sense.
All right. All right, Amy.
Okay, so capital improvement plan, 5-year, this will be 2023 to 27. I sent it to you. It's big. You know, our capital improvement plan is pretty huge. So I was just focusing on the newer things and the underfunded items that we needed to add additional funding to. We had to add 3.5 million. This is not including the additional funding we put towards drainage projects that we all talked about earlier. But I don't, you probably might hopefully remember those. I could send them if not. So Hugie Street Phase 2, Fire Station 8, we needed all of these projects needed additional funding. The Beresford Creek Bridge, that is only half of what that needs. We had discussed using ARPA funds for that. So that would come later, possibly for us to utilize ARPA funds for the other half of what it's underfunded. The Ashley River Crossing Bridge, Charleston 9 Firefighters Memorial, that's what I had talked about earlier. I needed to add a little bit because of the change in scope and also additional cost, but that is also hospitality money, not general fund. And then a little bit more for Stony Field improvements, just because costs, are increasing everywhere. So that was 3.5 million. We added 15 new projects, and these are what they are. The Municipal Operations Complex, that would be replacing Milford Street. That's what that is. There's a lot of discussion that needs to be had about that. It's somewhat preliminary, what we're trying to do in terms of fitting everything on our Grace site and how we would have to do that. That's the preliminary cost to that, depending on what we decide to do.
And let me interject that that's a very preliminary number, and we plan to come to our Public Works Committee for a full presentation of where we are with planning on that project in the very near future. Maybe certainly we can do it in September. We have been given notice, by the way, by the development team out there. So our 3-year clock has officially started ticking as of August 1, that they are requesting us to go ahead and move off of Milford Street, which, if y'all know the condition of the facilities there, it's time for us to do this and get off of Milford Street. But anyway, the next Public Works meeting or immediately thereafter, we'll have Edmund and Jason will give us a update of everything we know about the project at this point.
Okay, so public service, these are the drainage projects that we added, the newer ones, the Alberta Long Lake, the Central Park Drainage, DuPont Wapu, Fort Royal, Lake Doderer, and Long Branch Creek, and then the West Bonnie drainage improvements. But then that we also added additional funding for other projects that were underfunded as well, or that were progressing to the next level. If you want to see those, we can send those out to you later if you want to see that. And then the Hope Center, we don't really have a good cost estimate for that right now. We're in the very preliminary stages of that project, but it is on the capital improvement plan. And y'all know that we allocated ARPA funds for that and had talked about allocating additional funding to the Hope Center. We have the Bridgepoint Ecological Park, and that's partially grant funded as well. But this is the actual other side to it, because some of it is grant and then some of it would be what we would need to do for the park side of it ourselves. And that's what this project is. Brittlebank Park playground improvements, the Charleston 9 Firefighter Memorial, that whole project was not on the capital improvement plan before. We had money set aside, but it wasn't ready to get started. So it wasn't on the plan. That's the entire cost of that project that's now on the plan. Mulberry Park improvements, we do have $100,000 contribution towards that. So our portion of that is $350,000. Park renovation, that would be pickleball courts, that whole renovation for pickleball courts. And then the Shaw Center needs an upgrade. So those are those projects. Any questions on those?
Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Amy, I think the previous slide and then the subsequent slides show that we don't need to spend all this money in this particular fiscal year. You've got this broken down and spread out over time, which is a really important thing to us to keep in mind as these projects, because it's not going to be completed in a year's time. And some of these things are pretty extensive. The Brittlebank Park, have we been talking to the folks over at the River Dogs? Because there are some issues, some plans of expanding beyond the outfield of the Joe into the Brittlebank Park. Have we had any discussions with folks about that?
We have not, Councilmember Shade, not recently anyway. I know that that is out there, but we're right now trying to negotiate that. The Major League Baseball renovation requirement that's out there that we need to do. And there's some other projects that we have over there that need to be done for just the assessment that we had done a couple of years ago that we're still working on. But we have not had discussions in this part because this is mostly our playground improvements. And I can let Jason talk about that, but that's just specifically for playground improvements to Brittlebank Park. It doesn't have anything to do with any other type of renovations or tying it in with the River Dogs or anything like that.
It may be worthwhile pursuing that conversation is all I'm suggesting.
Well,
And we need to figure out the MLB stuff first, and then we can have those conversations after, I think.
Maybe so, but I know that they are very interested in wanting to create a different type of venue over there outside of the ballpark itself. And I agree with what you said about the park playground improvements, but I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time with this. It may be worthwhile having a further conversation to see if we can tie in to what they're looking at. And I know we're talking about the MLB improvements that are required. That's been ongoing discussions as well. But this may be an opportunity I don't want us to miss out on. If we can, if it helps us with these improvements, let's think about doing that.
I don't think we can do that, Councilmember Say, for sure, but I don't think that would tie in with what we're trying to do here. And I can let Jason talk to that more. Mayor, Councilmember Appel has his hand.
Councilmember Appel. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just had a quick question. If this is going to be covered later in the presentation, please let me know. But I understand we were able to locate some additional funding for the Windermere Basin project. And I just wanted to know if where that kind of fits overall.
So Councilmember Appel, that is on our capital improvement plan. It's just not a new project. That's why I'm not highlighting it. But like I said, when we get through this, if you want me to pull up the whole entire capital improvement plan and we can go through it, we can do that. So you can see everything that's on there. It's just 4 pages long. I don't think you wanted me to go through
Yeah.
4 pages of capital projects, but
It's on.
Yeah, sounds great, guys. We can maybe talk about that off air. Thank you.
okay.
So, and I do want to mention, Councilmember Shade, yeah, I've had discussions with the River Dogs folks about this esplanade that would go around the back, the outfield, and how it might connect with Brittlebank. And it's a bit ambitious, but I think it'd be wonderful. But I'll be honest with you, the more immediate thing we got to figure out is the improvements that they want to the stadium itself, just to qualify for the new Major League Baseball requirements to stay in business. So, and that ain't cheap. So we gotta take care of that first and foremost before we talk about adding, more bells and whistles. So that might be something we talk about later. Councilmember Parker, I see your hand up again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I apologize if I'm getting ahead or going backwards, but unless there's another page, I don't see any.
I think there is another page.
Okay.
Give us one more page and then see if we cover what you're looking for.
Okay.
Amy, you want to go to the next page?
Well, Jason, Councilmember Shade, do you want Jason to talk about the Brittlebank playground improvements at all, or do you want to just move forward?
Do.
Did he not hear me?
Do y'all want a brief synopsis of the Brittlebank Park playground issues?
Sure.
So Brittlebank Park, that playground was constructed in 1994 as the city's first and only fully accessible playground location. It's a destination location. It's central to the entire city limits. People meet up there every day. It gets school group use. It gets family use. It gets lots of incredible use. We've received complaints for multiple years about the condition of that equipment, and we've done an incredible job in the past 10 years replacing playground equipment. We have over 50 locations with playground equipment, much of it aging. And with y'all's help and the help of the budget office, we have done incredible work replacing playground equipment. Brittlebank Park Playground is the next one on the list. And to be quite honest with everyone, it has been Frankensteined together. It's difficult to get parts for 20-year-old playground equipment. Very expensive to buy replacement parts. It's been vandalized, and it's just beyond its useful service life. And it could be a wonderful location for children with all abilities to come together and play. And again, it's been on our list for many years now. So that's kind of the global description of what the needs are there. And it does take into consideration all of the future planning and concepts, not only from the River Dogs. We went through a very robust charrette process with many groups, and it includes consideration for any future Army Corps wall as well. So the playground is kind of stays where it is and should persevere throughout future. Hopefully it's something that we can get done for everyone.
All right. So Amy, go to that next page of the other projects.
Sure. So these are additional new funded projects that aren't on the CIP because they're smaller projects that we wouldn't typically include on the capital improvement plan. We have the Charleston Tennis Center, the Maybank Tennis Center, that's the lighting and the request that we had for lighting and such. The James Island Recreation Center shade structure, Fort Pemberton to kind of start repairing and getting going on that. St. Julian Divine Dance Floor, West Ashley Revitalization Commission asked for signage. That's that ask. James Island Recreation Center improvements to the interior of the building, Lake Dotterer pathways and boardwalks, and then the Governor's Park athletic field enhancement, Councilmember Waring, which would be that drainage situation for Governor's Park. And then.
So back to you, Councilmember Parker.
Yes, thank you. Well, that's great. That's exciting. I know there's much, and I was happy to see, Park Shore, the improvements over there look to be about $1 million. And I'll be honest, I was there just last weekend or just this past weekend. So that's certainly much needed. But I know I've spoken with Mr. Kronsberg a little about the shade structure, but we also know that that's an aging pool. That was part of the issue. Again, I won't get into specifics on that, but what I wanted to ask about was when if and when will this committee or other committees, maybe recreation committee start talking about bond referendums so we can get, $100,000, $200,000. We know that's not enough to do what we really need to do at the James Island Recreation Center or at Stephen Washington or, at Westchester. Westchester looks great. I'm headed there in a few minutes, but we're going to need more than 200,000. So when will this committee or the recreation committee, when is a good time to talk about a bond referendum?
Now,
good question. We had our Parks and Rec master plan come forward.
Yeah.
I really think personally the appropriate place to take that back to next is back to the Recreation Commission for them to really come up with the list of the major improvements like swimming pools. You talk $15-20 million to do a swimming pool facility. We're going to have to bond that, and but we need to hear from the Recreation committee really what their priorities are from that Parks and Recreation Master Plan. That's my sense of it.
Okay. Would that be sort of an agreement with, this committee? Is that where I should request that question be taken to?
That rec committee needs to recommend that for the budget to consider it. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Councilmember Shade?
Yep. Amy, can you go back? You got ahead of me. And maybe you're going to point that out, but on the Charleston Tennis Center and Maybank Tennis Center, maybe I didn't hear you, but those include lights.
Yes,
That's what it is.
that's
what I thought.
exactly what it is.
You were kind of fast. I didn't quite catch that. And
Sorry.
in Councilmember Parker's question, I think that one thing that we just need to be aware of, and I agree with her about the referendum, but there's a timing issue on that. So if we tie it into an election cycle, we've got to get that on the books well in advance to make it part of an election cycle. I don't know if we've already missed a boat on that for this coming November, but we may have. But if we're going to get it on for next November, we got to get the ball rolling on that as well. So I'm glad Councilwoman Parker brought that up, but we do have a time crunch to some level of that. So if we're going to do it, we got to do it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think we may have missed that time.
We've missed it. And I think too, because this election isn't the right election to put it on, right, as well, Rick? Usually we would do that next year, correct?
I think you want it on a citywide election.
Right.
And that would be the 2023 election.
So it wouldn't be effective, I guess, in this cycle anyway, but we did miss the deadline, Councilmember Shade.
Yeah, I was afraid of that.
I mean, before we do that, we need to determine what it's for.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, before we even start discussing it, we need to determine through the Recreation Committee, and I think you're right, Mayor, what would it be for? We've got a lot of aging pools.
Yep. And I would respectfully say, I think if we're going to have a municipal bond election, that to have it on our municipal election cycle makes more sense. But Councilmember Gregory is right. We want to have a defined priority list that we're asking the voters to approve if we're going to do it that way.
And my point, Mayor, is I agree with everything that y'all are talking about. So you've got to get the ball rolling on this thing pretty quickly so that you vet this out, decide what you want on there. It sounds like this a long way off, more than a year, but you got to get it on the books at a certain time frame statutorily, and you've got to do what Councilmember Gregg and you've been talking about, prioritize and identify those projects you want the money to go for. So it's really not that much of a window. And to Councilman Parker's point, we need to get cracking on that sooner than later.
All right. Well, Councilmember Shealy is here. You can put it on the next agenda. Councilmember.
We're currently trying to move up our Recreation Committee meeting. We're trying to make that happen before the next meeting, but so that we'll have a little bit more information on this. So we planned on having it the last time, and Tom O'Rourke wasn't able to join us at the last one. Something came up, and so we're trying to reschedule that Recreation Committee for a different date than what's the standard date that we've gone to. But we're trying to move that up and get that taken care of.
Right. Thank you.
In light of referendums for projects, I understand for parks, but let me ask Amy, when it comes to projects like, the public service building or the public works building that we need to build, will that eventually need to raise money for public works through a referendum? We have the money to.
Well, I mean, we don't have to do a referendum to get a bond, and depending on what type of bond we get as well, right? Because it might not be a geo bond, it might be an installment purchase revenue bond. I'm not talking about recreation, I'm talking about for public works. It just depends on what type of bond we get, but we don't have to do a referendum.
My
Yes,
point
but
is,
we would have to do, we'll have some other additional funding that we will need to have because we do have TIF funding out of the neck TIF. The second tranche of that is supposed to be for our public works facility. However, like right now, we only have about $30 million that we'll be able to utilize towards that. So we have a big gap in funding. So we definitely will need additional funds.
so my point is, I think we need some kind of comprehensive way to look at the big needs for recreation, the big needs for capital works project. I don't know, maybe stormwater. And I know those are different pots of money, but instead of looking at them in an isolated way, before we get tapped out, I think we need to look at, we know we got some bigger projects out there that we're just kind of kicking down the road. And what's, the public works project, we got what, 3 years, less than 3 years before we're supposed to be out of there, Mr. Mayor?
That's correct.
Yeah, so.
It started August 1st, and we have public safety projects as well. So.
And it wouldn't surprise you, I'm sure, that our Housing and Community Development Department wouldn't mind having another bond for housing.
I'm on the Zoom.
And Mayor, it's not as though we don't have a recreation plan. I mean, we have one. We just decided not to fund it. So we may need to just pull that off the shelf and start there.
Well, it's a 10-year plan, council member. And so, and some of the items that are on the plan, we're funding here tonight, or with future approvals. I mean, we're pulling out of the things that we can kind of digest, so to speak, and handle without having a bond going forward. The things that have kind of risen to the top of the priorities among staff and recommendations. So, the full plan over 10 years, we just can't do it all at once. But the things that it was like $75 million, right? So we got to pick and choose the things that we want to get started first on, that have bigger tickets that we're going to need bonding. But we're trying to work in these other things. As you just saw in the last 2 pages, there were a number of park items here that they were all on that park and master plan list. But these are, I wouldn't say they're low dollar things, because some of them are $500,000 and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a lot of money, but it's not like $20 million for aquatic center.
Right. Yeah, the plan was 80 million, Mayor. And
80.
And by now it's probably 100.
Yeah. And here's some more right here.
Right. So then there's some additional potential projects as well. And we don't have a cost to these yet. Jason's working on that for the Ackerman Park restrooms and Hall 2 lights and restrooms. And then there's a Sumar development. And then I put the golf course restrooms here because we have drafted, we talked about the MOU with the Friends. They have that to review. And that was to kind of formalize our partnership for future projects. So they do have that MOU to review and send comments back. So we have been working on some things. And then obviously we'll need to have additional discussions regarding this project. So that's really all I had for projects anyway. Any questions on that? Do you want me to pull up the capital improvement plan, or are you good?
That's a big list to digest. Did y'all, that went out in an email to everyone?
It did.
Yes.
Could I respectfully, in the interest of time, just ask if anybody had any specific question on that list, or I'm certainly agreeable at the next meeting to go through the whole list if y'all want to do, but I know that could take us well over an hour just to go through the list. It's 4 pages long.
I think Councilmember Waring, before, what we've done too is kind of pulled out all the West Ashley projects for y'all, just so you could see those. Would that be helpful if we did that? And so I could send that and we could discuss it if you need to. If you'd
Yeah,
like
that's
to send
good.
me-
I'm good with the mayor's suggestion.
Okay,
Turn that to another meeting and send out some information. That's good.
okay, we can do
Thanks.
that.
All right, any other thoughts, suggestions on any of the capital projects that we've talked about? How did, go back one more page. These are kind of brand new ones. Again, they're not big ticket items, but I think it meets a number of needs. The lighting we've talked about, some improvements to James Island Rec Center. The money for Fort Pemberton is really just to technically open the doors. You know, the WARC has asked for some funds before. So, and the $100,000 for Lake Dotterer, Councilmember Shealy is kind of putting back some money that we had allocated, like Councilmember Waring mentioned. We had allocated it a few years ago, and we used it during COVID, and now we're trying to put that back. So, and then the request that Councilmember Greg had for Daniel Island for that Councilmember Waring mentioned. So I think it's a nice kind of comprehensive list if you add it to the other ones that we already had on the page prior to this, and all the drainage improvements that we had added recently. So, and to tell you the truth, we probably are past capacity on there's only so many projects our staff can handle at one time, right, Jason? But we might be pushing them to the limit, as we often do. But I think this is a good manageable list of things to work on over the next year. Councilmember Waring.
You know, we've had, I think, 1.5 million parked for the WPAL property that was bought, you know, actually during Mayor Rowley's administration. And
Right.
then doing yours, $1.5 million was put aside. And somehow that's got to make the list. You know, I have a client that actually does, and I'm throwing this out for information, not to recommend a client, but who actually builds big docks. And prior to COVID, big docks were basically about $100 a foot. Now it's $150 a foot. And, you know, that park is going to include a pretty long walkway getting out to eventually a pierhead on the Stoneham. So do we actually have that on the project list to at least get out there to get some ideas on what that park will look like, so we can begin to bid something out?
So it is on the capital improvement plan, Councilmember Waring.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Jason,
Yeah.
I think, do you have anything on that? We were talking about going ahead and getting the RFP out on the design phase.
That's right. So just so if everybody remembers, we did already go through the selection committee process for design services.
Okay.
And kind of got waylaid by multiple projects, the pandemic.
The IM and everything, yeah.
So what we're doing is we've reached back out to the consultants and renegotiating that design contract in anticipation of kicking that project off in the fall for full design of the project.
Okay. And one last thing, I see Ms. Parker hand up there. One last thing and I'm done. On the Carl Richardson Park, I know it's rounding the curve on being finished, hopefully within the next, I guess, 30 to 45 days. I know there was some monies needed for signage or maybe some other little pieces after, I guess, maybe a contractor gets out of there. Are there any funds left in that contract to be able to, anything left over?
Yeah, I think we can cover that within the project budget, Councilmember
Okay,
Waring.
great.
We have discussed that and we're fairly confident with that, right?
Great. Thank
Jason,
you.
nothing changed, right?
That's right. It's just getting the work out of the contractors has been difficult. But we're working with the history workshop to get a proposal to get all the historic interpretation done. So we're on track to get that cooking.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I hate to harp on the park, and then going back to the, Governor's Park, and I hate to put Councilmember Gregg on the spot, but when was that park built?
Governor's Park? Maybe 20 years ago?
All right, and
15 years ago, maybe?
And can you tell me when the James, Mr. Kronsberg, the James Island Recreation playground equipment? Because I don't see anything like that in the budget. I'm looking at the whole plan right now, but can you tell me a little bit about that
So we
playground equipment?
Yeah, so we replaced the front equipment at James Island Rec Center in 2000. Wait, sorry, I have to give me a minute.
I think it was 16 or 17.
We replaced it in 2020. We replaced the equipment out front. The equipment in the rear still has useful service life left in it. That equipment was constructed in 2004. We just got award notification of our PARD grant that we're going to be replacing the equipment out at Harborview Fort Johnson Road Park, hopefully in the next 6 months. So we'll be bringing that grant award to City Council, hopefully at the next meeting.
Councilman Parker, just to let you know, you won't see playground equipment replacement and the capital improvement plan. Those are typically budgeted within Jason's operating budget.
Okay, and where will I see that?
So basically, it's in our maintenance budget, and what we've been trying to do for the past 10 years is a full cycle of playground equipment replacement. So it's in our playground maintenance budget and facilities maintenance. So typically we try to get at least one, possibly two replacements done a year. Of course, we've been sidetracked by the pandemic and the budget was, but that's been the goal for about the last 10 years. And we've done a considerable amount of work on that.
Okay, and I know beggars can't be choosers, but I know the Harborview Fort Johnson one is sort of on the list, but we have Stephen Washington too, as that playground equipment, and the James Island Rec equipment has, duct tape on the slide. So I just want to put that on the radar. So that's why I'm open. I really want to get started talking about the bond referendum, the baseball fields. Like I said, I was at Park Shore and I'm headed to Westchester in just a few minutes, and our baseball fields are, almost barely usable. They're just dirt and grass. So I just think we really need to, whether that's a budget item or again, more of a parks maintenance project, and something that I really just need to talk with Councilmember Shealy and just get back on that committee. I'll do that. But we have private partnerships that I think, they're already helping improve some of these things. So if we can find a way to do that, I think we should do it.
If I could take a moment and just make one mention that with all of the staffing discussions going on, the Parks Department is about 30% short on our approved budgeted staffing. And we are at a pivotal point right now in being able to keep up with our park maintenance. I know that's not what we're talking about, but I just need to get plugs in whenever I can because it seems like everybody else does.
Councilmember Parker, you said you're going to Westchester. Is that something that I should be a part of?
Oh, no, my kids just have practice.
Oh, okay. All right. Bye-bye.
They may need your help and wisdom, Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, we need volunteers, Councilmember Gregory.
I'm not looking for work.
Be careful what you ask for.
Amy, you want to talk about the budget process update?
Yes. So budgets from departments were due on July 8th, and we're working through all of the departments now and formalizing the list, that big fun list that we go through with you all every year. Councilmember Shealy will be new to this, so it's a lot of fun. It's a great spreadsheet. And then I sent out a lot of meeting requests to kind of get us through the rest of this budget process, I hope anyway, this week, which a lot of you have already accepted those meetings. The 2 meetings that we always we go through all the departmental budgets with the department heads. Those are scheduled for September 14th and the 28th. I haven't talked with department heads yet, just kind of figure out who's going to go on which dates. So I'll work on that and I'll let you know which departments are on which dates, just so you know that. And that is it. But before that, I think we have a meeting on the 8th of September. So we'll kind of go through that list of all of the requests. Obviously, we probably won't have time to go through all of it, but then that will give you some time to kind of look through it before we meet with the department heads on the 14th and the 28th.
Sounds like a plan.
Any questions?
Anybody got anything else?
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Amy, good job.
Oh,
Thank you.
the other thing I wanted to mention too, when we were talking about, because the recreation committee with the projects and some of the things we might have funded on the Parks and Rec master plan. So when we go, Jason, we can identify those things that we're already covering when we come to recreation committee. Yes. Okay. So we can do that. So you see what progress we've made so far on that list.
That would be helpful, I think. Right,
Okay.
Shealy?
Yes, that would be. Thank you.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, everybody, thank you all.
Thanks, Amy.